At the official opening of this year's conference, the Newcastle Workers' Club was filled to capacity. The CWA is a voluntary organisation that looks after the interests of women and children in rural areas, covering topics such as education, transport, health, even moral issues. The annual get-together is an opportunity to formulate policies and exchange information.
It's where we sort of recharge our batteries, and we meet women from all corners of the state.
The CWA is part of Australia's history. Wife of the former governor, Shirley Sinclair, has been a patron for 6 years and was today honoured with a life membership.
We just can't do without that volunteering spirit in this country.
And of course, a CWA gathering just wouldn't be complete without a bake-off. 13 judges had their work cut out for them, sampling hundreds of state finalist entries.
This part is quite important to a lot of women because this is what they love doing.
I always say they help me put on a little bit of weight because they're all very good cooks, you know.
Also on display, an exhibition showcasing the state's best handcrafts. Next year, the CWA celebrates its 75th anniversary.
I see it heading way on into the future.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Harold and Judy Harrigan are very proud of their son, but the chief's mum gets far too nervous to watch State of Origin.
I think I'll do the usual. I'll find something else to do, and when it's finished and all taped, I'll come out and watch it then.
Harold usually goes to the game even when it's in enemy territory, but for his son's 13th State of Origin, Harrigan Senior is staying at home.
I think I've missed one besides this one, but I generally like to be there. But this time I think I must be getting a bit old. I think the nerves are starting to get to me. I'll sit at home and watch him from the lounge room this time.
Just down the road, Adam Muir's mum is looking forward to the clash.
No, I think, no, he'll be fine. I think he might get the first try anyway.
OK, what, you got a bet on that or something?
Yes, I have.
Like her son, Marie Muir likes a punt. She's watched Adam grow from the Valentine Under-10 soccer team to the dizzy heights of Australian and State of Origin honours.
I never thought he'd get to where he is today, and his father and I are both very proud of him.
And there's no guessing on the predictions for the winner tonight.
Oh, the Blues.
New South Wales, of course.
Peter Ryan, NBN News. A spate of violent bank and building society robberies in the past 9 months has concerned police.
It's a terrible thing for anyone to be involved in any kind of armed robbery, and to have what could be a group going around committing a few can put the public at risk.
Yesterday, the Adamstown State Bank was held up by 2 armed men, getting away with a reported $100,000. It follows similar raids on the Newcastle Permanent in New Lambton last September, the Greater at New Lambton in January, and a robbery at the Commonwealth Bank at Edgeworth 3 months ago. Police believe they could be linked. All the robberies have involved weapons, firearms and knives. The men terrorise bank staff and customers, threatening to attack if they don't follow their demands.
Some of these people have been aggressive at times, and we'd like to try and clear this up if at all possible.
Police are chasing up leads on the latest raid after dumping their getaway car in Hamilton South. It's believed the bandits escaped in a white Econovan or Hi-Ace. The first man is described as tall, of medium build with short brown hair. The second is of average height with dark shoulder-length hair and a moustache. Anyone with information should contact police. Peter Ryan, NBN News. An industrial and residential suburb, Carrington, is based on a massive landfill of slag and ballast dating back more than a century. Studies have found that the material contains high levels of heavy metals, including lead.
In an industrial city, we all have to live with lead in the environment, so it's one of education rather than panic.
Newcastle Council is issuing notices to local residents. Parents are being warned that children should not swallow or inhale the slag. Carrington people want more information.
If there is a real problem, that it should be looked at further for the safety of, especially the young children.
Areas like this council-owned reserve are considered a possible health risk, the dirt easily accessible to young hands. Gardeners too should take care. The council move could affect land values in the area, with property owners now forced to make any future buyers aware of the heavy metals. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Lunchtime shoppers came to a standstill in the Hunter Street Mall as some of the children involved in this year's Starstruck took to centre stage. Today's rehearsal was aimed at helping the young performers get rid of their nerves before opening night.
They're pretty excited. A lot of them came across and said, I haven't worked with that part of the band before. But they were cool. They're like true professionals. They come through when it's really needed.
As the performers warmed up, so did the crowd, all of them appreciating the talent of the Hunter's school children. And with showstoppers like this, it's no wonder tickets for the 4 performances are already sold out. To try to accommodate public demand, the show's producers will open their doors to the cast's last dress rehearsal on the 4th of June.
If only they had more seats at the entertainment centre. That'll be our next plan.
Simone Thurtell, NBN News. Vincent Ryan was a respected and trusted Catholic priest for 30 years until he was arrested last October. He's pleaded guilty to 11 counts of indecent and homosexual assault on 7 young boys between 1974 and 1994. A number of his victims were in Newcastle District Court today for the start of sentencing proceedings. The court heard that some of the offences took place in the school playground, others in the church itself when he'd carry out assaults after altar boy practice. One child was sexually abused for 6 years, possibly more than 200 times, with Father Ryan also supplying him with pornographic material. Ryan's barrister, Peter Johnson, told the court that his client expressed deep regret for the harm which his actions had brought not only on the victims and their families, but to the church and its members. He said although Ryan's actions were completely indefensible, they were seen as a form of play. He said 2 experts had found Ryan was a pedophile with an immature level of sexual development. However, Crown Prosecutor Peter Barnett said no matter how sexually immature he may have been, he knew it was wrong, and by his calling should have been teaching these young men that it was wrong. Justice Rummery remanded Vincent Ryan in custody. He'll hand down his sentence at a later date. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The men were working about 200 metres underground when trouble hit. It's believed gas, possibly methane, ignited, badly burning the two miners. Ambulance crews and the Westpac rescue helicopter were called in just before midday. It took nearly an hour before the men were brought to the surface.
We're taking two of the miners down to the Royal North Shore Hospital burns unit. We're going direct from here to the Royal North Shore.
The men, one 22, the other 36 years old, are described as being in a serious but stable condition. An investigation is underway through the Department of Mineral Resources, the mine and the United Mine Workers Union to find out what went wrong. According to the company, the pits don't have a high gas content. The seam has been closed until the investigation is complete. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
In the last 12 months, the Department of Transport has received 4,300 complaints about taxis and their drivers, most related to rudeness, others driver incompetence and general uncleanliness.
Unfortunately, some areas of our industry need to be cleaned up. We do have an element out there, not as many in Newcastle as there are in Sydney, I might add, that refuse to comply with the regulation as it stands at the moment.
The state government plans to improve the industry. A package of reforms announced yesterday aims to make cabs cleaner and safer.
Taxi drivers on the road will have to be of a higher standard as far as personal cleanliness goes. They'll be wearing uniforms. The vehicles themselves have to be kept up to a standard which will be possibly higher than it was before.
Both taxi operators and drivers are welcoming the changes.
I think it's the best things that could happen to the industry.
First on the agenda, smoke-free taxis, driver presentation and vehicle maintenance to be introduced in the next 2 months. Other changes include improvements to driver safety. The reform package is to be fully funded through a $1 increase in flagfall from the 1st of July.
The Wildfires are improving week to week. In their last outing, they were down by only 5 points against the reigning premiers Gordon. Tomorrow they're at home to Penrith, which is sitting just beneath them on the ladder. With a 1-1 record against Penrith last year, coach Keith Gollan believes good form will see his side come out on top.
I think last year when we played them down there, it was the first perceived easy game we were going to have, and perhaps we went in a little bit blasé about it.
Meanwhile, Penrith is coming off its first win of the season last week. Turning to rugby league and matches this weekend in the Tooheys Cup. Toronto is at home to North Nelson Bay, South take on Cessnock, Central up against the Curry Workers, West go head-to-head with Maitland, and Waratah Mayfield takes on the Lakes. And a big event on the calendar for local aerobics, Newcastle hosting the state championships for the first time. Robert Ovadia, NBN News.
Working from their own strong defensive base, the Falcons kept the Devils to under 90 points for the match, all the while breaking through for opportunities under the basket. The Devils on their home court were capable of damage, but failed to capitalise on most shots from the three-point zone. Butch Hayes rattled the Devils' defenders. The Falcons formidable from underneath, as well as out wide. Ninnis from all over the court, McGregor, Rees and Van Dyke, the Falcons' top scorers for the 95-85 win.
It was a great team effort tonight. It was a game we really needed to win, especially after losing to the Devils last week. And that was a relief. It was a very important game for us.
The placings 3, 1 and 5, Whistle Up paid $14.40 and $3.50, Kid Lat $1.04 and Wild Fan $1.30, the Quinella $12.90, Trifecta $123.20. Also at Eagle Farm, the Grand Prix Stakes over 2,200 metres. The places 8, 5 and 2, Fiance $10.10 and $3.20, Valance $2.60 after a big charge, and Super Slew $1.60, the Quinella $42.40, Trifecta $234.10. It was a bruising encounter against Penrith to secure 2 competition points, the Wildfires flying their new Fijian winger Daniel Saifiti, who joined concerted rushes into Penrith's end of the paddock. The Wildfires' early mobility paid off in the long run, the match becoming a test of endurance. When Penrith did get out of the cage, they were a worry, bringing pressure to bear on Newcastle. By half-time, Newcastle had a comfortable 13-3 lead. Penrith had the weight of the rucks, but were all too often one man out for the breaks. Newcastle's teamwork brought home a 27-17 result, one of the best plays of the day, Chris Henderson's goose-step run for points.
Unlike gun rallies of the past few weeks, today's gathering was determined to portray themselves as responsible citizens capable of owning guns. Ken Leach's sister was injured in the Port Arthur massacre, but he came to lend his support to the cause. Organisers say the aim of today's rally was to unite all shooters so they can launch a credible attack on the government. The shooters say the Howard government can make as many new laws as it wants, but it's up to the people to decide whether they obey them or not. A feeling of persecution spread throughout the rally. The shooters say they're being made to take responsibility for a massacre no one could have predicted or controlled. Those at today's gathering realise their fight will be a long one, and the only way they'll be able to win against the government is at election time. They've vowed not to bury their guns, but instead to bury the politicians at the ballot box. The next gun lobby rally will be in Sydney on the 15th of June. Simone Thurtell, NBN News. This is the site the Elidoc company wants to develop a Pelican. They say it's the ideal space for their plans. Those plans include demolishing this old boat shed and constructing in its place a 2-storey L-shaped wooden marina. It would not only house fuel outlets and a cafe, but also space for the New South Wales Water Police and MSB Waterways officers.
The concern we have, of course, is that a lot of our services can be fragmented and they're in different places around the lake. I think the idea of bringing the services all together into one building, and we hope we'll bring them all together, I think is a good move.
A missed council meeting last week means the building proposal will be heard and voted on tonight by both council and the council committee. There's been some concern the packed agenda doesn't leave enough time for public discussion.
But I haven't heard any feedback on that, and if there was, then we'd make sure that there was proper consultation.
Should the marina be given the green light, it's understood developers want to get construction started straight away. Simone Thurtell, NBN News.
The Newcastle Permanent's range of products and services are designed to meet your requirements. Please touch the product that interests you. You can change the load amount and term by touching the amount you would like on the graph.
Yes. I'll get him.
I'll be right.
Yeah, mate.
They just got a flat hose with the holes in it.
No, he can do it. You quit. Then just too cold on the feet. Just push him down this way. That's the only way.
It's a change of venue for the synod held until now at Morpeth, but the Manning is where the historical foundations of the diocese were laid. But the church must keep up with the times as well, the issue of gun control permeating all levels of society.
An issue like Port Arthur is waiting to happen, not because people have guns in themselves, but because we don't know how to deal with conflict. And we leave people who are loners as loners rather than really reaching out to them.
Not above reproach, the church is working to get its own house in order, highly conscious of sexual harassment and misconduct charges against clergy.
Our behaviour has to be above reproach. And that doesn't mean that we don't fall as human beings. We will fall. But on those occasions, I think people must have the right and the opportunity to go through channels that redress that behaviour.
The synod or parliamentary gathering also looks at general business matters. Delegates will be asked to consider portioning off part of the landmark Bishop's Court residence in Newcastle to raise revenue.
The issue with regard to Bishop's Court isn't that we're going to sell it or anything like that. It's a question of stewardship. How do you retain such a beautiful property and such a beautiful heritage house in a way that is really helpful and that we can be proud of?
A State League Grand Final would provide the perfect send-off for Adamstown captain Graham Jennings. The veteran of 125 games for Australia would like nothing more than one last title to cap off his career, especially after the early season loss of 14 players to the Breakers and moves by the State League to oust the Rosebuds from the competition.
It means everything to me personally. Last year, as I said, we came second last in the competition, and I thought, well, I'll just have one more spin of the dice, and luckily, we are in a position where we can go straight in the grand final.
The unusual rules of the State League means that the side winning the first round plays the winner of the second round in the grand final.
We were leading up into the last game of the season where there was 3 teams in contention, us, Sutherland and Leichhardt, all vying for that one position, and unfortunately we had a washout game.
That game has been rescheduled to this Saturday, and it's sudden death for the Buds as they're already so far behind in the second round that they can't win.
Warringah last year's champions and a very good team, and if we would have played them 3 weeks ago I would have said we were odds-on favourite to win it. But because of the form leading up into the game, their form hasn't been too bad either. It just levels the 2 teams out, so it's going to be a very even competition.
Meanwhile, Highfields will play Wallsend in the final of the Arctic Cup knockout competition after success in last night's semi-finals at Carlisle Oval, Whitebridge. Wallsend beat Mayfield United 3-0, Highfields an equally emphatic 3-0 victory against Singleton. The final will be played on June 12 at Breakers Stadium. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The Central Coast is one of the fastest growing areas in the state. Statisticians say people from non-English speaking backgrounds make up a large percentage of this growth. For the past 2 years, a multicultural project has been helping non-English speaking immigrants, many from war-ravaged countries, to make a new life on the Central Coast. It has been funded by the state government. Now this money has run out.
It gave them a home base to get information and referrals, to meet, to provide that social interaction, the networking, getting all groups together and working together on the Central Coast.
Ms Jones says the project is essential for a majority of people who speak only their native language.
We have on our books 34 different nationalities from non-English speaking backgrounds, and it's a real mixture. We get a lot of refugee and humanitarian entrants as well from Somalia, Bosnia, places like that.
She says immigrants need understanding and support to integrate into Australian society, and losing that lifeline could have a devastating impact.
I think that it will be a big problem as far as keeping the groups together, keeping everyone focused in the same direction of positive multiculturalism, losing a lot of contacts with various groups and just losing all the hard work that's been done.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News. The normally quiet suburban street in Talara, west of Newcastle, resembled a war zone as stunned residents watched on in horror. As reports of the crash spread, frantic parents rushed to the scene, hoping their children weren't among those on board. The bus carrying about 22 school children collided with a car at about 4 o'clock. It then ran off the road, up the curb and slammed into a tree.
No, it's really freaky. My heart's still pumping.
And you'd just gotten off the bus?
Yeah, I just gotten off the bus, so I was really glad because I was going to go to my friend's house, but I'm glad I didn't.
Emergency workers quickly tried to locate all the children on board, a task made difficult by a large crowd of onlookers. Residents say they are amazed that no one was more seriously injured. The victims were comforted in a smaller bus while ambulance officers assessed their injuries.
102, then,
The Westpac rescue helicopter was called in to take an 18-year-old girl, believed to be the driver of the car, to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital with serious chest injuries.
While abseiling down cliffs and mountains may be a breeze for these scouts and venturer scouts, tackling the sheer face of the Newcastle Entertainment Centre was certainly a new challenge.
But it's definitely different because of I've never jumped off a building before.
Last night, the abseiling students assembled for a practice session. Against a backdrop of fireworks, a balloon release and light show, they'll abseil down the building. A pre-show performance for the opening night crowd.
The hardest part about this is the drop they have to come over, and being on the side of a steel-lined building makes it very slippery and hard to get over the edge.
And while a slippery surface also made the task a little harder, there were other concerns.
This is nowhere near as big as some of the other cliffs we do, so it's a bit nerve-wracking. You don't normally have quite the big crowd at the bottom.
Almost 18,000 tickets for the school spectacular have been sold. The only tickets remaining are for tomorrow's dress rehearsal. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.